Last week in our mailbag video, I got a question from Archangel asking me to make player comps for Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, and Latu. And I'll be honest, I really wasn't prepared in that moment to give 3 player comps for the top 3 edge rushers in this draft. So I told Archangel, give me some time, I'll do my homework, and I'll come back to you with a better answer. So that is what today's show is. Player comps for the Falcons' top 5 draft targets at pick number 8. Now, if you have an idea for a video you want me to make, feel free to comment it down below. My job is to give you guys ultimately what you want to see. So if there's a question you have or a topic you want to cover, let me know, please, in the comment section, and we can explore doing a video on it. So without further ado, let's jump into my first player comp, which I think is the number 1 draft target for the Falcons at pick number 8, Dallas Turner, who I'm going to compare to Brian Burns. Now, I should have mentioned earlier, these player comps, I don't want you to look at and go, oh my God, you think that guy's going to have the exact same stats and career of this player in the NFL? No. It's made up of physical traits, physical makeup similarities, and play style similarities. Now, one guy may be a lot better at his job than the other, but it gives you a good idea as to what type of player he models his game after. So for Turner, I went with Brian Burns. Both in the same physical makeup area, Turner 6'3", Burns 6'5", both in the neighborhood of 250 pounds. 40-yard dash and 10-yard dashes are not far apart. So from a physical makeup, they're very similar. Another interesting nugget is they both went to the same high school. They're both from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So maybe some similarities in their characteristics and whatnot, being from Southeast Florida, but both started off at American Heritage. Dallas Turner would eventually transfer to another school. I also learned American Heritage is an absolute powerhouse in football and all sports. Did not know that. They have a lot of really good alums. So with that being said, when you look at past the physical makeup, just from an on-the-field standpoint, both players dominate with their speed, especially when they're able to get to the inside. They're going to line up as outside linebackers, but they've got that blistering speed where every time I was watching Dallas Turner film and Brian Burns film, one thing that really popped out to me was the moment the ball is snapped, there's always one player on Alabama's defense that's like a full head ahead of the next closest defender making their way into the backfield. Dallas Turner was always upfield, and he's constantly in the backfield, and both of these players have great closing speed. If they're in your grasp, you're not getting away from them, right? Now, neither player is, in my opinion, a standout physical edge rusher, meaning they're really going to drive the left tackle or right tackle into the quarterback's lap. They're capable of doing it, but that's not the way they make their money, right? They dominate with their speed. They also have a really good ability to always be involved in the play. As an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense, every so often they find themselves dropping into coverage based on whatever the call is by the DC. And if the call on the offense is a pitch to the opposite direction to the running back, you want to know who's not going to be quitting on the play? It's Dallas Turner and Brian Burns, who started off on the opposite hash but found themselves on the opposite sideline right next to the football. So if you're looking for a comp for Dallas Turner, I think Brian Burns is a really solid starting point. Both guys, outside linebackers, they like a long runway. They don't want to be all that upfront with offensive tackles, right? They want to win when the ball is snapped because they're going to beat the offensive tackle with their great first step. And they're also going to have a knack for just constantly living in the backfield and tracking down running backs and other players in the area. So, do you want Dallas Turner to become the next Atlanta Falcon? Let me know in the comment section below. Simple Y for yes or N for no. Next player comp, we're going to go with Jared Verse, and I'm going to compare him to Trey Hendrickson, the original New Orleans Saint, and then the now Cincinnati Bengal defensive end. Both these guys, in my opinion, are defensive ends. I don't think they should be stuck in coverage situations. That, to me, sounds like a recipe for not disaster, but not a great outcome for the defense. Very similar makeup. Hendrickson's a little bit bigger. It's not a perfect comparison, but 6'4", 40-yard dash is in the same neighborhood. Hendrickson's probably got a little bit more strength and meat on his bones, which allows him to anchor a little bit better than Jared Verse, but Verse plays a lot stronger than what 6'4", 254 pounds looks like. Now, both these guys are effort driven. Jared Verse started his career off at Albany. Trey Hendrickson played college football at Florida Atlantic. Now, luckily for Verse, thanks to NIL, it's very lucrative for him to transfer to a school like Florida State. But if Trey Hendrickson was playing college football last year, it definitely wasn't going to be at Florida Atlantic. He would have transferred as well, like all the guys do from non-Power 5 into Power 5. So from a background standpoint, a lot of similarities in they may not be the most physically gifted guys. Jared Verse is not as fast as Dallas Turner or as quick as him, and Hendrickson's not as fast as Brian Burns, but they're going to overwhelm you with effort. They're going to overwhelm you with relentless tenacity, and just a very high motor for all four quarters that in the last few minutes of the game, offensive tackles, they don't want to deal with a defensive end that just won't quit. That's where these guys really stand out. Third player comp, let's go with everyone's favorite tough nut to crack, Latu, the UCLA edge rusher. And I know this is going to get people's eyebrows raised. My player comp is TJ Watt. Now, don't look at that and think Latu's going to lead the NFL in sacks. He should be the first edge rusher off the board. This is more of a physical and a play style makeup, but by no means am I suggesting Latu is capable of becoming the next NFL sack leader because his comp is TJ Watt. It's just a rough idea as to he reminds me of TJ Watt when I watch his tape. But let's compare the two. Physical makeup wise, much closer than I would initially, guess. Latu an inch taller, few pounds heavier, few seconds faster on his 40-yard dash. But from a measurement standpoint, these two guys are cut from the same cloth. Now, both players in my eyes have really deep arsenals and a lot of clubs in their bag when it comes to pass rushing moves. Remember Dallas Turner we talked about, he wins with speed, right? He's got some strength. He's not a weak man by any means, but when it comes to Latu, I think of the three edge rushers in this draft class, he's the most skilled at the position. He's a guy that can win in a variety of ways. And sometimes we see edge rushers get to the NFL, and if they only have a driver in their bag and an offensive tackle does their homework on that week's edge rusher, they're able to take that one element away from them, and then they become one-dimensional and then zero-dimensional. So I see some similarities that Latu and TJ Watt have where both guys have really deep bags or deep moves in their arsenal. Now, TJ Watt is not the same exact position as Latu. I'm not sold on Latu being like TJ Watt in the NFL where Watt's an outside linebacker, right? He finds himself near the football a lot of times because he's in coverage a good amount of times, right? He's not always rushing the passer. Pittsburgh will drop him back into coverage from time to time. Latu, I don't think he's going to make for a great coverage linebacker. I think he should be on the defensive line more. So from that standpoint, it's not a perfect comparison. But if you're looking for an edge rusher that's not the most physically God-given, gifted edge rusher or defensive end, like Myles Garrett is just Superman, right? You don't get a Myles Garrett in every single draft. There has not been a Myles Garrett since Myles Garrett came out, in my opinion. But Latu has a really high motor, and he's got a lot of tools, and he's got a lot of moves, like TJ Watt, where they may not be perceived as the best edge rusher for the lack of physical traits, but they always seem to find the quarterback with the football. And that showed last year. Latu, 13 sacks. TJ Watt led the NFL in sacks. So I do think there are some similarities in their respective games, but it remains to be seen whether Latu can bring that over to the NFL. All right, next player comp, let's get to the wide receiver now. I'm going to go with Rome Odunze, and I'll compare him to Amari Cooper. I'll be honest, I struggled with this one maybe more than any other player comp I worked on, but I landed on Amari Cooper. The two are not apples-to-apples comparison. Odunze on the slightly larger size. He's 6'3", Cooper 6'1", similar weight, similar arm length. 40-yard dash is only a few milliseconds apart. Both players win with their elite route running. Neither guy is a true speed demon, Deshaun Jackson type of wide receiver. They're not slow by any stretch, but they win with great route running, which I think that term is used way too often in a very casual manner. What is route running, right? You're just good at running routes? No. Route running is having a very deep knowledge of, hey, based on where the defense lines up and when the play starts, where they all shift to, how I should adjust my route, right? Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are a great example of being on the same page because Kelce knows based on how the defense lines up and where the help is and whatnot and where the coverage is at, I'm going to go to here on the field. And I know my quarterback is going to see the same thing as me. Not all wide receivers do a great job of adjusting on the fly. Rome Odunze, he does a phenomenal job of it. And also, he's got an incredible catch radius. You just toss it his way, he's going to come down with it. And Amari Cooper is built in the same way where if it's in the right zip code of Amari Cooper, those surefire hands, they don't drop a lot of balls. And he'll come down with the ball one way or another. Now, I think Odunze might be a little bit better of a better red zone threat than Amari Cooper is. But I do see a lot of similarities of if you're looking for a receiver that's going to get the job done, that's going to be reliable, someone you can count on, these are your guys. Other comps I saw for Rome Odunze, Larry Fitzgerald, which I do see the play style similarity of not a receiver who's going to be an extremely fast vertical threat, but a guy that's going to be physical, and that's Odunze and Cooper, and yards after catch monster. And Cooper's not the best. Amari Cooper's not the best yak guy. That favors more Odunze. But from the physicality standpoint, I see a lot of similarities between Amari Cooper and Rome Odunze. Now, do you want to draft a wide receiver at pick number 8? Type D for draft or type P for pass. Fifth and final player comp, let's toss in a corner. Can't rule Atlanta going out for Terrion Arnold at pick number 8. And the player comp I cooked up was Kyle Fuller. Now, I personally always strive to do player comps for guys that are still in the league because that's fresh in everyone's minds. But Kyle Fuller was playing football just a season ago, so I'll include him in this. These two are very similar in a physical makeup standpoint. 6 foot to 5'11", separated by a pound. Arm length is very similar. 40-yard dash, their speed is nearly identical. So side by side, these two guys look very, very similar in their physical makeup. Both players are ball-hawking cornerbacks. Terrion Arnold, 5 interceptions last season at Alabama. Kyle Fuller throughout his entire career, which was predominantly in Chicago with the Bears before brief stints in Denver and Baltimore at the end of his career. With the Bears, he was one of the best ball-hawking corners. He led the NFL in interceptions one season. I see a lot of similarities that Terrion Arnold might not be the most athletic cornerback we see in the draft, and he may not have incredible speed or, mind-blowing size, if you will. But if you're looking for a lockdown cover corner that's going to come away with interceptions and is going to make plays on the football, this is your guy. And if his ceiling is Kyle Fuller, that's a pretty darn good ceiling. Because Kyle Fuller was a very good Pro Bowl caliber starting cornerback for 7 to 8 years in the league. And I bet there are a lot of teams that would love to have that type of play be guaranteed to them with the 8th overall pick in the draft, right? Yeah, he's going to start for you for 8 to 9 seasons, and he'll make the Pro Bowl 3 or 4 times. I bet a lot of GMs would say, where do I sign? Because I'll take that type of guarantee. And I see that in Terrion Arnold with Kyle Fuller. Do I think he's got Patrick Surtain or Sauce Gardner type of a ceiling? To be honest, no. No, I don't. But I do think Terrion Arnold is a Pro Bowl level cornerback that can hold his own, can make plays on the football, can sell jerseys, and can get butts in seats. And for Atlanta, that might not be a bad idea to put opposite of A.J. Terrell. Or if they don't think A.J. Terrell is the long-term solution for them at cornerback, you can draft a guy this year and have a head start on replacing him next offseason. So of the 5 players we ran through on today's show, which of these 5 players do you want to draft the most? If all 5 are available at pick number 8, which I expect, at least one's going to be available at pick number 8. So Atlanta's going to have a good opportunity to pick more than just one of these guys if they really can't make up their mind between the 5 of them. Which one do you want to pick? My overall preference would be Rome Odunze 1, Dallas Turner 2, Jared Verse 3, Terrion Arnold 4, and Latu at number 5. I did not include Malik Nabers just because I think he's a Charger. I think he's going pick number 5, so I'm not going to get my hopes up for him. But I think Rome Odunze is just the best overall player of these 5, and I know wide receiver is not the biggest need for the Falcons, but I think it's one of those you'll thank me later, kind of like when they picked Calvin Ridley. Do they desperately need a wide receiver at that spot? It's not the best apples-to-apples comparison, but no, they were picking a little bit later in round number 1, and they just took a really good football player. If you're looking for a surefire thing at pick number 8, I'm more confident about Rome Odunze being a surefire thing than any other guy. But I know Dallas Turner brings a lot of weight because of the need for a pass rusher, especially since Atlanta's been sitting on their hands all offseason at that spot. So that's probably where the Falcons will go, and Odunze may be a Giant, maybe a Bear at pick number 9. But if there's a guy that I know is going to make a Pro Bowl out of those 5, and I would put money down on it, it would be Rome Odunze. That will do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in, Archangel. I really hope you appreciate the breakdown. I had a lot of fun making today's video, so if you want videos of this nature, let me know in the comment section what I should talk about next.